Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday. I we're really here. We're really still at home, and we've got the air conditioners running full blast here in sunny Southern California. I am Justin, and I'm a lot. And we are both volunteer contributors to the OneRing.net, a website founded in 1999 and has been going. This is the third wave of kind of Lord of the Rings adaptations. If you want to talk about movies, it's the third round of movies. We did the Lord of the Rings and then the Hobbit, now Rings of Power. Or you can consider it the third wave of filmmaking because there was the animated movies of the 70s, the feature films of the 2000s, and now a television show for the first time in history. And Cliff, you've been a part of Fandom all of those times as producer and writer of Ringers, Lord of the Fans, the definitive documentary on this fandom.
Academia, but most of all, I've been able to examine different waves of popular culture. And we've studied it and we've interviewed everybody, the people who actually lived it. We've talked to people from the 1950s right on up to now. And everybody has been really energized by the idea of Professor Tolkien being adapted into other forms. And, as we know, the phrase from his original letters is other minds and other hands, taking an attempt at molding clay, poetry, song, visuals, anything, any artistic medium in between, inspired by the legends that he created in Arda. And you know what's amazing? This is television, serialized television, and it's the very first time Tolkien and his stories have ever entered into this large scale serialized television. It is a very first. So I say that Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne are pioneers, actually. They're pioneers, being the very first to not to say that Tolkien has not been on television, because in 1977, The Hobbit was a telefilm.
Well, that was a made for TV movie, but it was definitely
90,
a movie.
it was
And we've got
92
the
minutes long.
quote
Yeah.
right here. We've posted this quote many times. Tolkien said in writing, "I had a mind to make a body of more or less connected legend from the cosmogonic,
Cosmogenic.
cosmogenic
Cosmogenic.
to the
Cosmogenic.
level of
Yep.
romantic fairy story, linked to a majestic whole, and yet leave scope for other minds and hands, wielding paint and music and drama." And I want to focus on that last part.
Linked to a majestic whole is an
Well,
important
that's
phrase as
what
well.
you, Cliff, want to focus on because you're a lore master. I want to focus on the last five words: wielding paint and music and drama.
Mm.
Tolkien was specifically talking about filmmaking. He wasn't. He didn't say leave scope for other minds and hands to write more
And
books.
drama, that could have meant radio, broadcast, or
Stage.
stage, and yeah, absolutely, or dance, even choreography and dance.
Right. So
Yes.
Tolkien was open to all of these forms of adaptation, and it's there in his own pen. Now, some people will say he ends that letter saying absurd. And the brilliance of Tolkien's writing is that everyone can read what they want to into his works,
Well,
and his letters.
he
And
was
so
he was checking his own ego by saying,
he was checking
you
his
know,
own ego.
yeah, in a sense.
So we are live on the internet, as you saw at the top of the show. I didn't hit the unmute button fast enough for Cliff, so you didn't hear the first introduction. That is Cliff Broadway, and they just got a little bit of it, but
That's
that
fun.
goes
That's
to
funny.
show you that we do this show live, and there's no producers behind the camera or anything like that. It's literally just me and Cliff, and we're
Nobody here
pressing
but us
buttons.
chickens.
There's
Yes,
nobody here but us hobbits. But I tell
but
you what, you know who else is here?
still,
Everybody in the chat room. Right below me, right here, is the live chat from our Discord, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And
yes.
we love to see all the comments. I see Varking is in
Welcome.
there.
There's Varking. Welcome,
Tolkien
Varking, and
Wonder is in there. Sarah Elliott, the
so many of our
Shiv Knight.
friends.
So many of our friends are here joining us, and
Well,
uh,
it is a community after all, and it feels like that. It does feel like a bunch of family members returning to the table so we can eat and discuss. And this is why we're here. Welcome back to the table. And we keep our, we proudly must say that we keep our table open and we keep it clean. So welcome to the table. We're going to have a really good, hearty conversation because there's a lot of people out there who feel a certain way about this show, The
there's
Rings
no
of
one
Power.
certain way, though.
And I'm talking about
I
my
just
certain way. My
I'm
certain
not talking
way.
about my certain way
I can only
either.
talk about my certain way.
But Cliff, but before we get going, I do want to say if you look on your screen at the bottom, it says you can text us 530-64 Frodo.
Frodo.
Is really our phone number, and that
It
goes
really
right
is.
here. You can text me at that phone number, and I will get your text messages. And once in a while, we'll open up the hotline for phone calls. I don't know if we're going to do that today, but you can text us anytime with questions or comments and
Or thoughts. Or
or thoughts.
thoughts.
And I might
Thoughts.
have
Now,
we might do something special on the text hotline by the end of the show.
now that we're all here together, and thank you everybody for joining us on our multiple platforms, let's get right to it, shall we? There is a thing, it's on television. It's called The Rings of Power. You may or may not have seen it. And I wrote my review, so everybody's read all of my words. There's the words. But I've had some additional thoughts. Since I've seen it a few times now, and I've had feedback from people in my life and my family who've really enjoyed watching it, and some who had other opinions. There's there's a thing that's going on here that I want to say right out of the gate. One of the strongest qualities that I appreciated the most about the show is how it makes an effort to differentiate itself from the tone of all the other shows that are out there right now, including The Witcher, The Wheel of Time, The House of the Dragon, or The Sandman, or or Lock and Key, or The Umbrella Academy, any of these other big fantasy shows, and certainly Carnival Row. This is really interesting that The Rings of Power has a quality to it that sets its overall emotional tone very differently. It's very different. And I would dare say it is more romantic. I think it's more romantic and
A
more.
romantic fairy story, to quote
It is.
Tolkien in
It's.
his own
But
letter.
do you see what I'm getting at? But yes, in that sense of the word romantic, that's the sense of the word I'm getting at. There's a quality to it that seems elevated. There's an elevated and romantic and earnest, a very earnest, but it's so artfully done. Artfully, every single tiny thing is very artfully and thoughtfully put together. So that's to its great credit. It distinguishes itself because there's an active crowd of other fantasy and genre storytelling going on right now in streaming television. And I really think the success of The Rings of Power is that it is distinguishing itself from the others. It really is.
I agree, and Cliff and I have been watching and reading and listening to all the podcasts from our friend Joanna Robinson at The Ringer. Our
Yes.
friends over at IGN, and many of our fellow influencers, Nerd of the Rings, Matt. We see you. Varking did a wonderful interview
Hello,
with
Matt.
the actress that plays Disa, Sophia Namviti, over on Reddit Talks, a brand new Reddit feature of kind of like a clubhouse for Reddit. And of course, the Tolkien professor Corey Olson has done everyone's been doing great analysis and deep dives, and even for the pop culture shows like IGN, wonderful Twitter spaces and things like that. I love listening to all of it. Just keep me in Middle Earth in between episodes. But I thought that for people that are just joining us, there are thousands of you that are just returning to Middle Earth, returning to Lord of the Rings fandom, maybe after 10 or 20 years of kind of like having families and growing your careers and doing
Yeah.
it. So we're so glad that you're back. We're, one thing I've noticed with all the others that with all these podcasts I've been listening to and YouTube shows I've been watching, it feels like a continuation of something that was happening before that I'm not very familiar with. So uh, I wanted to take this episode to just kind of say welcome to all of our new viewers. And
Yes.
this is the start of something new. This
I s-
show, Torn Tuesday, which will stream live every week at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then it will be available just online on YouTube, on Facebook. You can watch it anytime. But don't feel
Anytime.
that you're don't feel intimidated that you're walking into something that we've been doing for 10 years, because we have. But this is I feel like today's episode, we're kind of a reset. We don't expect everybody remembers everything we've been talking about for the last 5 years about this show. So we're going to do everything we can and try to remember to, like bring you up to speed on things. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments, or you can text the hotline. If
Absolutely. That's why we're
even
here.
the most innocent question, like, hey, how come, do you know anything about this, or how come they decided that, or I heard about this, or I heard this rumor. Is the $1 billion budget a real number? Well, let's start there. Yes, it is. It really is. If
Mm.
you go to the onering.net, we've posted an article this weekend, the history of Rings of Power, that takes you through step by step how this show came into being. And
Hmm.
Cliff, it was, I don't know about you, but reading that kind of brought back memories of, like, oh yeah, that happened.
It did. That was a really great piece, Justin. I'm glad that you put that together. The journey to get here is something we could talk about, and hopefully there will be some kind of interesting behind the scenes stuff going on where we can see and learn more about what it was like for the Rings of Power to get produced and get made under the weird conditions that it was made under, considering there was a worldwide pandemic and all those other things happening. Just unexpected major crises around your massive television series that you're trying to make. But aside from all that, there is a strong sense of wow. There's a big wow factor going on here, that they got 25 million viewers this opening weekend, and the scale of it, and
Well,
there's
Cliff, let me
also
put that number in perspective. Everybody
let's
in the chat room is like, did this set records? Well, first off,
let's
it
let's
was
contextualize that. Yes.
right. It was bigger than Game of Thrones debut episode of 11 million viewers, or not Game of Thrones, a House of the Dragon.
Mm,
So 25 million global viewers. Cliff, let me ask you
mm.
just real quick. Name the top three TV broadcasts every year, just off the top of your head.
The Super Bowl.
Okay.
Um, let's see, the Super Bowl, the State of the Union address, and I
Maybe
guess
the Oscars.
maybe my third guess would be maybe the Academy Awards, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's put this in perspective.
Okay. Three
For
guesses.
Yeah, so 25 million global viewers. Let's bring it up on screen. This year's Oscars drew 16 million viewers, soaring 58% from last year.
Hmm.
This year's Oscars drew 16 million viewers,
Hmm.
and Lord of the Rings drew 25 million viewers.
Oh my
This
goodness.
is officially the second biggest broadcast of the year, second only to the Super Bowl.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
So there you go. There, if you want context, is 25 million a big number? Yes,
Okay.
in all capacity, in all instances,
Now
uh, it's bigger than the Oscars.
that's wild. I had not thought about that. I had not thought about that. That's interesting. Wow. Okay. Now let's get to the bones of what I really want to talk about and what everybody wants to talk about. How do we feel? How do we feel about what we saw? And I feel that it's very promising and it's really beautiful, and it is peppered with, sprinkled with issues, lore issues that would represent minor deviations that are, the kinds of things that pull me out of it and think, wait a minute, that didn't happen. Wait a minute, maybe that did happen, but maybe it didn't happen like that, or maybe. And then the other half of my brain has to shut off that analytic approach, that very analytical and perhaps overburdened approach. And I have to let that go. And I have to sit back and then just take in, like a sponge, what they're trying to do in terms of televised storytelling.
Monica
And
in the chat room asked Cliff, have we all shared our overall views yet? And the short answer is Cliff and I have, also our
I sure have.
the co-founder of the OneRing.net, Calasuri, has shared his reviews. He shared his review. If you go to the OneRing.net, you can find Cliff's excellent review and my emotional review. But Monica actually says, I really, really like it. Not in love yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's easy to really, really like what they're doing, but everybody still wants to hesitate until the end of the season. Who can blame you? Who can blame any of us? I'm actually wanting to wait and throw down a really big, comprehensive conversation about it when we get to the end of season 8. But you know, oh, boy,
Varking says the dwarves were 9.5 and the rest was an 8.
I identified a four-legged table. I thought it was a four-legged table. There's the excellent adventures down in the Southlanders, which is really like far southeastern Mordor, Nirn, like there. And then there's the Harfoots and their interactions with Meteor Man, known as the Stranger. And then there's Galadriel's uh, adventures and misadventures in Arda. And then the next leg of the table would be the relationship with Khazad-dûm and the elves, which is perfectly encapsulated by Elrond and Prince Durin IV, which is my favorite part of the show presently, which is something I really, really like a lot, is exploring the dynamics between Elrond and Durin IV and his wife, Disa, who is elevating wonderfully, wonderfully elevating things as those two characters are figuring out their feelings with each other. And I had a tweet that got like around the world and back, me saying that how excellent is it that Owain Arthur gets to give us the chance to see how a dwarf works. Difficult problem for him, I'm sure, but how he works through his feelings. Nobody ever lets a dwarf work through their feelings, much less spend half of an episode of a billion-dollar TV series letting us navigate the really intricate and interesting dynamism between Elrond and Durin. And I really loved that stuff. It was my favorite part of it so far.
Cliff, a
But there's
comment
more to
from the
come.
chat room, and I dare not put any inflection in this. I want you to take it as it's read and tell me
Okay.
if it's positive or negative.
Okay.
Brian on Facebook says Harfoots felt very Willow or Dark Crystal esque to me, to be honest.
Yeah, that was very Willow. There was a whole feeling of
But
Ron.
is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because I can't get
That's
a
good.
vibe from Brian of like, was
No,
that good or
people love Ron Howard's Willow. Are you kidding?
do you think this show will be better than Disney Plus's Willow TV show?
I was just about to mention that. I said we had a crowded field of existing big scale fantasy series, and Willow is coming back on the air along with all these other shows that we're wildly enjoying. So yeah, I think that was a very favorable comparison. Ron Howard's Willow is adored by many people, and I'm like okay with it. I'm okay with Willow. It's fine. I'm a lot more of a Dark Crystal fan, and I really do appreciate the Harfoots and the detail that you see in their agrarian culture, because they're trying to preserve their culture while they're trying to make themselves as mobile as possible, migratory. They're incredibly migratory, and everything in their life is built around being migratory. But
And
they're
that's
also
true to Tolkien. That's how Tolkien wrote it. The Chiv
at
Knight in the
this,
chat room says
yeah.
John Rhys Davies walked so Owain Arthur could run directly into our hearts.
I'm loving that. That's great. That's a great assessment. I
I have
love
a
that.
funny story, Cliff. I was in love with this show so much that I booked a plane ticket to London, first New York to watch it with you because I wanted to see it with you
Mm.
particularly, and then I went to London because I wanted to see it with some people that I knew were showing up. And so in London, red carpet, you can imagine the chaos and the energy, right? And everybody's like doing
Yes.
things,
Yes.
uh, I'm chatting briefly with Owain Arthur, and someone comes up behind me and tickles me on the side, and I'm like, "Who?" There's only one person in my life. No, two people. There's only two people in my life that I've allowed do that, and I turn around and
Oh my
it's
gosh.
John Rhys Davies
No way. How about
there
that?
at the red carpet, and so I'm like, "Hey, what do you like? You're here. What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh my god, I remember you from all the cons, of course, and the One Ring, and da da da." And Owain was just there, and he's smiling. He's like, being polite, and it took like 90 seconds for Owain to recognize like who
Ah.
was standing there, and he just
Ah.
went from like, You're Gimli. You're Gimli. I'm here with Gimli. I'm here with Gimli. Right? Like you're Gimli. Yeah. What? Ah, come here. Come here. And he just went in for the big dwarfen hug, and
Wow, how wonderful.
it was just you know what it was? For right there, right then and there, I saw the passing of the torch. I
Mm,
saw
I
one of the
see.
most beloved actors of our generation, one of the most important parts of Peter Jackson's movies, there in London,
Wow.
giving a hug to Durin the fourth, right there, and it was just he was just happy to be there and happy to see someone else, and we like it's just that's it. It's a passing of the torch, and I feel like we're
That is so wonderful to have seen that in person. Wow. I hope somebody photographed that moment in time. I hope somebody
no,
photographed that.
the magic
Wow.
was it wasn't photographed. It just happened, you know.
Okay. Okay. I get that.
And
Well,
I think I don't think most of the old Lord of the Rings folks have tweeted or said anything about the show yet. But in the lead up to the show, everyone
hmm.
has said, "I'm ready to sit back and enjoy Middle Earth without having worked there." It's like it's different when you if you ever worked at like McDonald's or something, like you don't eat there while you're working there, but you come back 20 years later like, all right, I still like their fries, like I
Oh
don't know.
gosh.
It's We are getting so many text messages
I think that it would be great to respond to some of the people in the live chat who are saying some really insightful things and some conversations here about, somebody asked, actually, quite a few people are asking, well, all the Harfoots are wonderful, but where are the stores and where are the fallow hides? Where are they? Will they surprise us at some point in some
They're
future
in season
season?
3.
Maybe, yeah, maybe they're in season 3 and they surprise all of us and they show up. That would be kind of cool. Actually, that would be super cool if that happens. So,
Cliff,
just
what do you think? Let me be honest with you. What do you think of the Harfoot accents? A lot of our friends in the community love the show, love the Harfoots, but uh, it's a different accent than we're used to with the Hobbits.
actually, I don't have a problem with the accents being different. Um,
They're
I have a,
like Irish,
I
aren't
would,
they?
I would assume some variation in dialect because they're not settled in the lands of the Shire, and they haven't been living there for centuries.
Yeah,
With
but you don't have to settle in a land to learn how to speak. Like,
No, but you settle into a land, and then idioms of expression and the changes of the language
hmm,
happen and evolve over time. And those changes were the kind of thing that were studied, academically studied by Professor Tolkien. And it might be intriguing. And at some point, we'll have to interview the dialect coach, Leith McPherson. We have to bring in our good friend.
well, breaking news: we
She's a good
have
friend of ours. I
the
would
One
love to
Ring.
interview her.
The One Ring has interviewed Leith McPherson. If any of you were at
Yes, we
Dragon
have.
Con
Yes, we
this
did.
year, this last weekend, Leith McPherson was there,
That's right.
spilling all the tea about accents and dialects and everything like that. So. And other special guests came to Dragon Con, which we'll get into in a moment. But
That's so good.
the dialect coach really, you know what, and that goes to show how important the studio knows these dialects are to fans. The fact that they sent Leith McPherson, the dialect coach for Rings of Power, to Dragon Con on
Mm-hmm.
opening weekend,
Mm-hmm.
we care about this stuff, and they know it, and they're really supporting the fans
Well,
with this effort.
she was also the dialect coach on the Hobbit film trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and has worked with Andrew Jack, who was the legendary dialect coach for the Rings trilogy.
I
So
gotta say before we move on from Harfoots, my favorite. I'm telling you right now.
thank
I
you of
was
Gondor. Thank you of
I
Gondor. I
was
appreciate that.
hype. I was hyped the second we leaked his involvement,
Yes.
and I'm happy to say that Lenny Henry is my favorite Harfoot.
Yeah.
He is perfect. The fact that he's the only one of the Harfoots that can read, and he's reading the stars, I think he has a much bigger role to play than any one of us want to admit. But I'm very, very happy
That's so
with
cool.
his accent, his performance. It's not an over caricature because we know Lenny's disposition in his comedic efforts and acting, and he's just he's brought it all back and he's playing it for drama.
He's
Uh,
he's actually telling them what I love when he tells all the ladies to mind your business and to get back to it's just I love the way he does that. He's really great. He's an absolute charmer, and he's charmed me as much as anyone in the cast has charmed me with their their effort at visualizing these characters and giving such depth and interesting qualities to these characters. But Nori, Nori is my favorite character from the Harfoots.
really,
Even though
really.
there's no reason why they needed to name her Brandyfoot, and we do wonder why they don't have hairy feet yet. I wonder why they're not hairy feet yet. We're not worried about it, but we're wondering what's going on with the Harfoots that they don't have like furry
Well, they
real
didn't just focus on it. You didn't have a hobbit on with his feet up on the table saying
proud
our
feet.
feet,
Yeah, okay.
So they didn't focus on it. By the way, Cliff, a bunch of people in the chat already for the last several minutes have been saying, are we gonna get any behind the scenes stuff? And
I would hope
happy
so.
happy to report, I can definitively tell you, yes. Here's a picture from the head of the studio, Albert Chang. This is the first table read in January
Oh
2020
wow.
of the cast. And if you look there, there are two, not just one, two high def, very professional cameras stationed around the actors. They filmed everything, including the very first table read. And this isn't just for research. I mean, those are broadcast quality. So I can
Wow.
definitively say that Amazon has been documenting the entire process. And by the way,
Okay.
this was
Okay.
shot in New Zealand, so those camera guys stayed in New Zealand during the
Yes,
pandemic,
they
during all
did.
of shooting. So this is from the head of the studio. So I guess that's your first confirmation. When will we get those, Cliff? I want to
Unknown.
remind everybody. I think
Unknown.
there's a whole generation of fans now that kind of grew up with like the Lord of the Rings on DVD and Blu-ray, and that's how they maybe first watched it, and then they put the disc in. Cliff, do you remember how long it took between the theatrical release and seeing those appendices for the first time?
A year, a full year.
A full year.
Yeah, a full year before the behind the scenes came out. Yep. A very long wait, a really long wait. I don't know if they're going to make us wait that long. I mean, the difference.
So the question is, do you want them to make us wait?
No,
I
no.
have an opinion on this, but I want to hear yours first.
Well, I think that they're going to dole it out to give us something in between the blank space between season 1 and 2. I mean, that would be the most strategic and smart business way to get that extra content out there while the audience is chomping at the bit waiting for season 2. But I would kind of like them to do something not so different from what Game of Thrones always does. They do a 7 or 8 minutes of behind the scenes right after the end credits of each bottle episode. Why not? Why not do that?
Well,
Well, they're not.
man.
Obviously, they're not.
So
They're
so
not
I
doing it that
use
way. But why not?
so I usually watch Game of Thrones live on HBO. So I didn't know that they did that. And then this last episode because I was traveling so much. This last episode of House of the Dragon, I watched on HBO Max, and you're right. As soon as this episode ended, there was like an 8-minute behind the scenes feature, and
Yep.
personally, hated it. Hated the fact that it's trying to tell me the making of before the season is ending. So we're
Okay.
not getting anything of substance because they don't want to spoil what happens in the next 2 or 3 episodes. So it's just a bunch of like talking heads go, that one scene where he walks through the battlefield was something, wasn't it? Uh
Okay.
I did not like that. So I appreciate
Okay.
that you appreciate it, and we can agree to disagree on this. I also
Yeah.
don't like I'm also not a big fan of Disney Plus releasing like the making of Obi-Wan like the week after the series ended. And I know there's rumors from Dr. Nosy and stuff in the chat room saying, as soon as this season ends, they're going to release the behind the scenes feature. I think there's a healthy balance to have. And I honestly, if I had any influence in this decision, I would let season 1 stand on its own and its storytelling abilities for 6 months. Just let it sit all the way through the holidays. People going home for the holidays, they watch Lord of the Rings on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, as a lot of fans do. And then they spend the next week, hey, we should all, as a family, watch this Rings of Power thing. I think we should let that stand for 6 months. And then in the springtime, then release season 1 behind the scenes. That is my opinion, because what I don't want to do is if we're
Hmm.
at Christmas time and we're visiting family and we're visiting the folks out of state, I don't want my stupid nephew saying, "Oh, that's the scene Galadriel kicked the helmet and broke her toe."
Okay. Okay.
Like let's prevent any of that from happening for 6 months. That's my opinion.
Okay.
The Peter Jackson let his films stand on their own through a theatrical DVD release
Hmm.
for a whole year, and I know attention spans are short, but like give us some breathing room before we learn how the sausage is made.
That could be an interesting approach. However, there is something to the idea of um, we're stuck with only 2 episodes and we have no idea what the next 6 episodes are going to do. So, I mean, even if you grease the wheels with online featurettes a little bit here and there, that would certainly invigorate discussion. But
Look,
okay, okay, okay.
When Peter
But
Jackson was doing King Kong, he sent us production diaries while he was making it, and the One Ring was lucky enough to host those videos for him, so he could give
yes,
fans a sneak peek while they were making it. Cliff, you and I begged for that while they were making the show, but now that they haven't done that, I'm saying hold, hold, just hold.
keep the mystery. Really, you want them to keep that
Keep the
mystery?
mystery until through the holidays. Just
Hmm.
let it breathe. Let the content stand on its own before we learn
I
how
am
it's made.
I am most looking forward to those holiday dinner table conversations because now I'll be able to talk with people about all the stuff that they've never conceptually grasped before because they never read the books, and I'll be able to talk about these things like Numenor and what's really the great tragedy that's going on in that overall story. I love being able to have um, more to talk about with family at the
Cliff,
holidays. I love
oh my
that.
god, breaking news, Cliff. Breaking news. This has
No,
just
no, no,
happened.
wait. Oh,
This,
okay. Please don't do this to me. But go ahead. Let's get
this
it out of the
just
way.
happened. This
Get it.
just happened, folks.
Oh no, come
Uh
on.
we asked Bear McCreary on Twitter,
Oh
what's your
gosh.
schedule look like for the next 4 to 5 years? Bear McCreary is the composer of the music of Lord of the
Indeed,
Rings season 1,
indeed
and
he
we
is.
asked what is your schedule for the next 4 or 5 years. Bear responds, staring into my future like you have no power here. So wait,
Wow.
we can infer from this tweet that Bear McCreary does not have a signed contract for season 2.
No, you can't infer that
He
from
says
that.
that right here. Come on. You have no power here, staring into my future. Staring into my future like you have no power here. He's basically saying he's not in control and he doesn't have a contract.
Uh,
That come
uh,
on. Th-
really? Okay,
yeah.
I don't even know what you're getting at, but okay, maybe. But no, I don't think that would be the case.
So
I don't
you
think there's
think he
any.
has a multi-season contract. You think he's coming back and you want
Yes,
him back.
and I think that he's making a very playful allusion to something else. Maybe it's a bit more cryptic than we need to deal with right now. But I'd rather talk about the show, not about speculating about season 2. At this point, I want to talk about what is right in front of us, these 2 episodes.
Okay.
Did you realize that people didn't use the word okay until maybe the 17th century?
Okay. What are you saying?
Exactly. So there's some type of conversations I've had, and they're linguistic conversations, and I had them with one of our best and brightest members of the OneRing.net community, somebody who has written some wonderful and scholarly articles for the Green Books there at the OneRing.net, our online study group. So talk to Ostadan. That's his name, Ostadan.
Oh, that's
And
right. Osadan, longtime member. And let me
and
preface
contributor.
this.
And let me preface this by saying it's his birthday today. Happy birthday
Happy birthday.
to one of the best and brightest who is part of our Torn community. And I had a conversation with him about some of the dialogue and some of the issues that we have discovered with the dialogue in the episodes. But go ahead, preface. Go ahead, preface
I
what you
was
were about
just
to
gonna
say.
say that
What you're going to say.
if you read my review on the OneRing.net, you'll see that I compare the opening of Two Towers to the opening of Rings of Power, and a lot of the energy feels very similar, and I'm very excited because Two Towers is my personal favorite of all 6 Peter Jackson films. But this man, birthday boy Ostadan, who has been a panelist at the One Ring panels at Comic-Con, and he's been a wonderful contributor, and he's even published in the People's Guide to J.R. Tolkien, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
I believe Ostadan is in the house. He's in the chat. Hello.
and
That's so funny.
but Ostadan famously, out of the same screening that I really fell in love with Lord of
Yes.
the Rings with,
Yes.
at the same screening, Ostadan walked out because it was incredulous how they treated Faramir and rewrote that character. And when the hobbits get to Osgiliath and Samwise starts his epic speech and says, "By all rights, we shouldn't even be here."
Yes.
If I recall correctly, Ostadan's the one that stood up in the theater and said, "You're right. The hobbits were never at Osgiliath. You shouldn't be there." And he walked out.
he It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, I'm so thrilled that Mike is with us, and I stand corrected. It was actually the popular use of okay appeared in 1840s. In the 1840s,
Wow.
so you would not have like a pre-Iron Age Arda. You would not have the use of these words. Now let's go back and look at the way that Frodo talks to Gandalf in the Fellowship of the Ring. He says, all right, keep your secrets. He doesn't say, okay. So evidently, the word okay appears twice out of the characters' mouths in the Rings of Power. And it
Oof.
is from the 1840s, and it became very popularized in World War One, as he was just telling us in the live chat. In World War One. So the idea that there's other type he and I had this really interesting conversation, and I'm going to share with most of you all. As much as I really loved getting to go into Arda and seeing these beautiful locations, beautifully realized, and all these interesting characters doing all this stuff, I had problems with the binary choice that Galadriel had jumping off the ship. I had problems with Gil-galad giving out a get out of jail free card and acting like he was the guy who had the authority to give people the gift of going back to Valinor, because that was not him. And that is not how it is. That's definitely not how it is in the books. But I really loved all these other qualities of the show. And then I got into it with Ostadan, and he said, look, the way that Gil-galad talks to Elrond and says, we're going to send you off to go work on a project with Celebrimbor. That is like 21st century business jingoistic corporate talk, right? And it's the type of dialogue that hits your ears a little differently when you're in a specific Middle Earth setting. You know, it's the type of dialogue that sounds different than it would if it were if it were written more carefully. The dialogue would not sound like he was sending him off to a Zoom meeting with Celebrimbor, and then oh hello, he's there. You know, and then the use of okay and idioms of language are a big thing with Professor Tolkien, and therefore these usages and idioms of expression and dialogue should be more carefully considered, I think, by the writers' room. So interesting. The tech meeting at Gnome Tech Limited, and then there was a workforce. That's right. Remember when Celebrimbor says, "I want to build a tower, and the tower is going to hold a forge, and it would require a workforce larger than has ever been assembled in Middle Earth." Well, that particular word, workforce, is not very Tolkienian. It's not something that Tolkien would have used. He would have described it differently,
Do you think
So,
they have menus in Aragaon?
do you think that there's meat back on the menu, boys? That's the exact.
Come on, let's
Let me
be
get
honest.
real.
Like this,
I'll be honest with you. I had the
okay.
problem at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring when Aragorn puts his blade back into the scabbard and he says, "Let's hunt some orc." To
I
me,
love that.
that was the most jarring dialogue from Viggo Mortensen in Fellowship of the Ring, because it sounded like he was an action figure and somebody had pulled the string to make the action figure talk, and he says, "Let's hunt some orc."
I'm
It was
okay.
like,
I'm
that's
okay
something
with that.
a toy would say that,
The
not
thing that
Aragorn. A
long
toy would say that.
longtime viewers of the show will know that I'm a big fan of the movies, and the lore is not a priority for me. But I can recognize that it is for many fans. But I do want to say when it comes to Brimby, because in
Yes.
our Discord, if the links on our on the video right here. But if
Yeah.
you join our Discord, where the discussion is healthy and heated, Brimby, as we call him, uh, says I have to build it by spring, and these are elves. Elves don't have schedules. Elves have all the time in the world of the ages.
No,
No elf has ever worked on a schedule
there are
ever.
there are powers against the cosmos that are being measured, and we don't know what Celebrimbor is talking about.
What is he talking about? Why
We
does he
don't
have a
know.
schedule? A
He did.
schedule?
Hey, do you
A
remember that
schedule?
do you remember that the light of the moon would only work on Durin's day to shine on the keyhole on the side of the lonely mountain? That's because there was certain magic at work in Middle Earth that is dependent on the movement of the
So
stars.
why
Listen,
didn't
let me finish. It's dependent on the seasons and the movement of the stars and the planets. And he didn't explain that. And maybe the problem is that the dialogue should have been there so that you would have understood that he was talking about the alignment of the cosmos.
yeah, so I guess it's a way to say we're in violent agreement that the tone and the lore is there, but the dialogue of explanations of dialogue. I mean, just find a way to reword. I need this built by spring. I need this built by the second moon of autumn. Like something stupid like that that I won't know until
By
later on.
by the second new moon at the end of Summerfest, or
Yeah.
some dialogue like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
So
get it.
so
Okay,
so
okay.
but we do know, Cliff, that television is a writers room collaboration. There's a dozen people in the writers room, including the two showrunners and the
Mm-hmm.
lore expert and some of the producers and assistant writers. So this isn't just Peter, Fran, and Philippa banging out a script in a hotel room the night before they have to shoot, right? There
Right.
is a dozen
Yes.
brain trust of a dozen people, and I do
Yes.
believe that the writing will get better, because you have to imagine the
Sure.
first scripts are this team of people, this dozen people that
Yeah,
are just assembling for the first time,
of
getting to know
course.
each other, and
Oh,
then the showrunners be like, "All right, who wants to go first? Jennifer Hutchinson, you go first." Like,
all the big shows start off with a little bit of that growing awkwardness in season one, and then they get stronger and stronger in later seasons. Of course, I think one of the best examples to look at is Star Trek: The Next Generation, and compare the writing and the direction of season one compared to sharper, more focused, and more successful writing, a lot better writing in later seasons. But that's a big generalization. I just want to talk about the fact that, you know, Mike, uh, we talked about it.
Ostadan.
So Ostadan with Mike, he's in the chat right now. You guys say hello to Ostadan. He's in the house in the YouTube chat. And you know what's hilarious is that that had been him, and he never told me that was him. Mike, you've been hiding in the chat under that nickname for all these years, and you never bloody told me that it was you. That's really funny. He's my friend, and I never knew that was
What
him under that nickname. Okay, but look,
what else?
in
What else was he saying with you
there's
today?
the opening narration where Galadriel says, "At that time, we never had a word for death." But in Quenya, they actually did have a couple. There's at least two. There's at least two words for death before the time of what Galadriel describes in the prologue, before even arriving at the two trees. Imagine all the elves that woke up, the firstborn children of Iluvatar, and they woke up on the lake shore, on the shores of Cuivienen, and they had to make the long, long, arduous journey all the way from Middle Earth and find their way to the Blessed Realm. There were a lot of them that didn't make it. A lot of them died. Many of them were kidnapped by Morgoth and the orcs of Melkor at the time when he was called Melkor. Now, they did have a couple of words, and he shared an email with me. And I'm going to take a quick look, and I'm going to tell you real quick. This is what he said. Death in Quenya, presumably the word, all right, because he said, presumably, when she says we had no word for death, we mean in Quenya, though the Amazon production will not seemingly make a distinction between Noldor and the other elves. But the Proto-Eldarin root Nur, N-U-R, gives us the root Nuru, like Nuru Fantur, which is a name for Mandos. And it's also the form, the Sindarin word Guruthos, which means death, horror. And the prepositional phrase di Ngurothos, which is what you hear Frodo saying when he cries out in Mordor for Elbereth. There's a part in the book, in The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo uses the file of Galadriel, and he cries out in Quenya, in a language that comes out of nowhere, seemingly, for him. And he says the phrase, the prepositional phrase, di Ngurothos, which is in his call to her, to Elbereth, to help him. So there were a couple of words for death that they actually did. And then there's also Phir, fear, meaning to exhale, to expire, which is in the Sindarin name Firiel. Firiel means mortal woman. And for the elves to have a connotation of death is what they mean when they're connoting the phrase mortal woman, Firiel. And that was also mentioned in the last ship in the Adventures of Tom Bombadil. Firia is Quenya for mortal human. Firia, Phir. So Tolkien wrote a note distinguishing these meanings, that Phir, fear, was to die of natural causes, and it did not apply to the elves. It did not apply to the elves, though, you know, it could be a word that the elves applied to animals on the great journey, the animals or the horses or the beasts of burden that they may have had as they made the great journey from the lake of Cuivienen all the way over. So, you know, very
So the elves had a
intriguing.
word for death, but they didn't have a
They did.
word for their own death.
Yeah, they did. They had a word for death or two. They
But
had a
they did
couple of
not have
words
a
for
word for their own death,
um
because that didn't exist.
no, it was like in describing Mandos, because obviously when the elves died, they went to the halls of Mandos to wait. So they would use a word describing him as an afterlife, as a death, you know, uh, deity in that context. Okay, so that's intriguing. Nur
Cliff,
Nurufantur.
Gilgal, it's Gal, in the chat room says those writers have a big responsibility and they need to be up to the task.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of what we see set up in these early episodes is for the advantage of other characters. Like I said in my review, the reason why we're on a ship and Galadriel jumps out of the ship right at the moment before going to Valinor, that wasn't for Galadriel's benefit as much as it was for our Pharazôn. That is for the benefit of the audiences to understand when they see that place visually once more years from now. And our Pharazôn has built his great armament to attack and claim their own stake in Valinor. So that's what it is. That's television. We're not dealing with motion pictures. Look, this is not motion picture idiom. This is television.
It's television. Idiom. And as we just said, television. As we just said, there's a dozen writers in the writers' room, and they're all very capable. And I am so excited for this writers' room. And for the last 2 years, I've been praising the choices that they made. Because Cliff, when they first announced that Amazon was going to make a TV show, remember we shared a list of showrunners that we would like to see, including Neil Gaiman or J. Michael Straczynski or Brian Fuller. We shared like our wish list of showrunners. JD and Patrick ended up getting the gig, but the writers' room that they stacked included writers from all of the shows that the showrunners that we had suggested. It was like Brian Fuller, Hannibal, like they got the Hannibal writers. Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, they got those writers. Like this is an all-star team, and I do think like these writers, if you watch their shows, their episodes on the other Emmy-winning shows that they've all worked on, you'll recognize. And by the way, Helen Shang, she's one of my favorite people in the writers' room. Helen Shang worked with Richard Armitage on the Red Dragon storyline in Brian Fuller's Hannibal.
Yes, that's right.
So, like, she knows how to do tormented souls.
Yep, indeed.
And people that I'm most excited if Helen Shang is in charge of like capturing Celebrimbor's Brimby's Fall, like the way that she and the writers captured the Red Dragon, Richard Armitage as the Red Dragon, and how just a normal guy was just overcome with insanity and the evil things that he did because of that. I am so excited that writer from that show is now going to tell Celebrimbor and Sauron's story.
And our Pharazôn. I think our Pharazôn is the one.
I don't know who that is. We haven't been introduced to him yet.
He's well, we'll see him in episode 3. He's the king of Numenor, who is going to take that great armament of ships to attack Valinor and claim immortality. Now you're talking about somebody who falls into darkness. That character, our Pharazôn, is going to be doing that.
And think of the writer Jennifer Hutchinson from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Talk about shows that show men falling. I mean, that's it. Those two shows are it. Cliff, you just brought up episode 3. I have to remind everybody that although J.A. Bayona did this awesome 2-part pilot while the show was getting its bearings in the writer's room and the crew was getting its bearings in production effort and quality, we have not been introduced yet to half the cast. Episode 3, we start to get introduced to Numenor, which we haven't seen yet. We start to get introduced to the bad guys. We haven't met any of the bad guys or the orcs or the orc culture. As you remember, we reported over a year ago, about the orc concentration camps. And you see a tease of that in the trailer when Arondir, he just got captured in the caves, right? You're going to see in the next few episodes Arondir chained up, chains around his ankles in the orc concentration camp. Are they trying to corrupt him? Are they just trying to kill him? What are they going to use Arondir for? But we have yet to meet the bad guys, the big bad guy of the season, or the island of Numenor. So this cast is going to double over the next 3 episodes.
It's a lot. So it feels like we had to take in a lot, and there's so much more coming. I agree. I agree. But it's interesting to. I think the most interesting thing is some changes that they've obviously done to Tolkien. I think work really really great, and some changes I'm struggling with about how I'm not quite sure how they
Well,
work.
this is interesting because Cliff, we got a text message. Um, uh, this is a great question, Cliff. Do you wish you could watch the show with no knowledge of the lore?
That is a wonderful, wonderful question.
Because
And
that's how I live my life, and I'm enjoying every minute of that. And if you read my review at theonering.net, it is
well, it's based on that. That's
very embarrassingly positive.
yes. Well, no, honestly, no. I don't think I would want to go in not knowing anything. One of the reasons why I appreciate the Sandman series so much is because I know the comics and the graphic novels so exceptionally well. And what I love about Rings of Power, I'm getting satisfaction out of it because of what I know about Tolkien so well. As much as I know Tolkien well enough to have grievances. So I get to have it all. I get to be Mr. Ambivalent. I'm not really ambivalent. I'm not really ambivalent. I think that I'm very enthusiastic, but I'm also scratching my head about, you know, why does the High King of the Noldor hold his cards so close to his chest? And that is the way that Ben Walker described his character when he was doing an interview with someone recently. And I thought about that in terms of what is the High King of the Noldor really doing? I don't know yet. I know exactly what Galadriel wants to do, and I know why she's motivated. Um, Even though we didn't learn anything about her other siblings and her other relatives, and we didn't learn any distinctions about stuff from the First Age, we still know why she's motivated. And I really am very clear on why the Southlanders are motivated in the situation that they're in. And it's crystal clear what's going on between Elrond and Durin. It's amazing stuff. I really am satisfied with all that. But what is not clear to me yet is Gil-galad. I'm not quite sure what he's doing yet. And
Fair, but I
really
will
not
say
sure what
this:
he's doing yet.
the one criticism that we absolutely will not accept on the timeline is he doesn't look like he should, because Gil-galad, of all people, look exactly like Peter Jackson's Gil-galad.
Yeah, he
Like
does. He sure does.
exactly.
He sure
Um,
does. Yeah.
we got another text message again. The hotline is at the bottom of the screen, 530-6 for Frodo. That's
Um,
really my phone number. Cliff, he says, Eric says, as a moderate Lord of the Rings fan, I am enjoying the show so far, and it is visual so stunning. A
it
lot of
is.
friends and family said that it was enjoyable but very slow, and Galadriel was not as relatable to start, but that could be just because it's still so early in the series. Cliff, is it fair to say that this first season will be a so called slow burn? As always, looking forward to discussing more of the series as it comes.
Do you know what? I love a slow burn. I like those kinds of movies that give me a slow burn. I
I don't.
love that stuff.
I
I
don't.
love
Look,
that.
you can watch the first hour of the Hobbit trilogy, and it's just a perfect story. There's a beginning, middle, and end, and we feel so complete as the dwarves fall asleep singing their song. And you can watch the first hour of Fellowship, and it is a complete story. And we're excited to leave the Shire, but we feel that we know all about the Shire, and like the story of the Shire has been told within an hour of both those movies, and we're happy to move on. And I don't know, like here we are in the first 2 hours of this show. I know it's a 50-hour thing, but we're in the first 2 hours, and I don't know, I don't have a sense of completion, I guess,
I
is
know, but I mean, no, this it's a style of storytelling. I'm looking at Denis Villeneuve and the way he did Dune. Heck, the way that he did Arrival. That's a slow burn type of science fiction. It's different, than other sci-fi stories. I
Mm.
really like that type of thing. I like it when Miyazaki does it. Okay, Miyazaki gives us a movie that will slow down and really breathe and meditate, and then he'll eventually push push people and his characters into the third act. He'll really slowly push things to a point of resolving. And I like that slow burn of storytelling. It's just, maybe it's an acquired taste, but I can appreciate the fact that there's a breathing quality to the Rings of Power. I guess a breathable. It feels like it's bigger and calmer, but it's not appropriate to say that the series feels slow to everyone, especially when I'm watching certain segments. It moves by so quick and so fast, and then it's on to the next thing. Um, Particularly with the Harfoots, you don't yet understand a lot of things, and I do
I
feel
guess
like,
but that's what I was getting into. Like,
yeah,
most TV shows, especially like a pilot episode, or a two-part pilot episode, or even the first hour of a film. I'm telling you, like most TV shows, I've walked away with from the pilot feeling I was told a complete story in some capacity, and I see where they're going with some characters, and I see that this is
mm,
the world is
mm,
opened up and we're going somewhere. But
yeah,
like even with the first episode of House of Dragon, it's a full complete story that ends with uh everybody, all the lands, giving fealty to the new king, right? um there th- I don't get that from the first two episodes. I don't get any sense of completion. There isn't one storyline that is neatly wrapped up with a bow at all. Everything's a cliffhanger. Not just a cliffhanger, it's just nothing like we weren't told a story. It was all set up in exposition. So I get what people are saying, that this is a slow burn, nothing really happened, something happened, but there was nothing in this in the two-part pilot that was a complete thought.
hmm. If anything was put together as a complete thought, it was the visualization of Khazad-dûm.
But
That was
that,
put
again,
together
not
as
a
a,
yes, that was as complete a thought as possible. By the
yeah,
way, I get what some people are saying, like these people are nervous, that some
yeah,
of the producers and the showrunners have come from their last job was working with J.J. Abrams, who is
mm,
famous for the little mystery box motif of like everything he does. Like everything has to have a mystery box. I'm a little nervous that they have some mystery boxes going on, and again, no complete thought. There nothing was kind of there was no, I didn't feel a sense of completion on anything. The closest we got was Khazad-dûm, but even then, like King Durin the Third opens a thing and it's obviously Mithril. Why didn't he just like pick it up and say, "And we shall call it Mithril," or what should we call this stuff? The elves what this is probably elvish magic, and they probably want it like some sort of complete thought rather than
mm,
like let's
mm,
open up another mystery box, and it's
mhm.
literally physically a box
A
and it's
mystery
glowing.
box. Yes,
It's
indeed,
literally a mystery box. They like
indeed.
not only we fans, everybody in the world knows Mithril exists, and the dwarves dug deep for it. So it's
Yes.
okay to just kind of sometimes just give us what we expect, please. Just go ahead,
All
please
right.
have the confidence to give us
Well,
what we want.
up to, and I want to acknowledge. Thank you for that. I want to acknowledge everybody in the chat. Here in the YouTube chat, I want to acknowledge Finrod84, who says, "Why do you think they chose to show the dwarves of Khazad-dûm looking like hobos or homeless people? Shouldn't the dwarves look regal and well fed?" And I want to give you my personal thoughts. I think that a
Hmm.
lot of them were shown as, um, honestly, I've never seen so many well fed. Everybody had a cup in their hand or a turkey leg. Everybody had a flagon of mead and a giant turkey leg in their hand in those scenes. And I think everybody was very well fed. But the people, comparing to the other dwarves, who, only Bombur in the Hobbit films maintains being well fed. Um, it seems like they're hardworking, and the ones who look really dirty and grubby and all scruffy with soot, I think it's because they've been working so hard, just working in the forges, hammering and making beautiful things in the dwarven mines. And I think they're all very plump and they look very happily fed. I think it looks like an economically fruitful time. And I think the background actors, however, are being played the way that the way that Ostadan said, the background dwarves are being played like a bunch of frat boys at a big sports contest, going rah rah, like a bunch of frat boys. And I'm like,
I would,
well, it
you
is
know,
what we're looking at. I think is a bit of a weird athletic competition.
all right,
Actually,
we heard Varking, our wonderful Discord and Reddit leader of all leaders, give the dwarves a 9.5. Cliff, 1 out of 10. Rate the dwarven culture that you see in the show.
oh gosh, the way I see the dwarven culture in the show so far is a 9.5. It's so great.
So you're with Varking.
It's so
I
great. You know what? They had
I
a
don't.
conversation in an elevator. They gave us good television in that moment. There's Elrond and Durin having elevator talk for several minutes. They're having a conversation about their complex feelings and guilt and complexities between each other in an elevator. That's great television. I liked that a lot. I loved it. I thought that was the best. I love
Now
that.
we're agreed that the Arkenstone is a Silmaril, right?
No, we're not. It was
Okay.
never a
Well,
Silmaril.
and we're
No,
not. I don't.
no,
I'm not
no,
agreeing on
no.
that rating of the dwarves. And maybe I have to come around to this,
They don't.
but
There's no
but
connection between the Arkenstone and any
yeah,
of the
again, I was just
Silmarils.
yeah. We don't have to go into that, but I'm saying
Well,
uh when we meet the dwarves at the Council of Elrond in Fellowship,
yes,
they look hardened and old and gray, but they look real. And there is a level of,
yes.
I don't know, there's a level of reality to the dwarves, the 3 or 4 dwarves we meet at the Council of Elrond, that I'm just like, wow, that is it. And you and I have talked with many fans over the years over the caricaturish nature of the dwarves and the Hobbit, right? And Weta Workshop kind of went, I think, a little opposite direction. I feel Gimli is a real person, not a caricature, not a character,
Mm-hmm.
but Gimli just looks so perfect, and his older brethren at the Council of Elrond just look real. They just, I don't know how else to describe it. It looked real. The
Mm-hmm.
dwarves and the Hobbit,
Mm-hmm.
they look like caricatures, and it's supposed to be more cartoony, and it was appropriate for the Hobbit.
Okay,
These
okay.
dwarves,
Appropriate for the Hobbit. Okay,
it was,
right.
yes, these dwarves so far in Rings of Power look like the Hobbit more than Lord of the Rings. These dwarves with and the camera shots focusing on that one dwarf with the big nose, always laughing and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
don't know if I'm fully on board with the realization of these dwarves looking more like the Hobbit caricatures and less like the realistic uh it's just realistic ones we saw in Fellowship of the Ring. And but we're supposed but the context, the writing and the context and the culture of the dwarves is very much more serious in tone. So I appreciate that they're leveling up the culture of the dwarves
Mm.
from not being
Okay.
the Gimli was a joke in the movies, right? He was always the butt of a joke
And that
and the
was
center of a
that
joke.
was a disappointment that he was always used for, and to my endless undying migraine headaches. Nobody tosses a dwarf. Okay,
Or
okay.
you're gonna have to toss me.
You're gonna have to toss me.
But
Don't
but
don't
then you
tell the
go
elf. But don't tell the elf.
but then
So
you go to Balin and Richard Armitage's Thorin. You go to Thorin and Balin's dialogue in the Hobbit movies, and it
Yeah.
is so serious. It is so serious. So, but the whole movie feels like a cartoon and a caricature.
Well, there are
So
more
I don't know.
dwarves. There are more big dwarven characters to meet, especially Narvi. And yes, I'm acknowledging the chat. They're talking about this character, but you know the doors that Gandalf has to open? You must only speak the password, and the doors
They
will
still
open.
yeah, and
It is
they still have to
Narvi,
build that dwarf.
but
They
that,
have door that door
yeah,
dwarf door with
it's
Elvis
actually
thing.
the gate. It's called the West Gate of Moria. And
Here,
that West Gate is going to be built by a new character who we're going to meet soon, sometime soon.
you want my prediction?
Tell me.
Uh, uh, during the third, gets eaten by the Balrog. During the fourth, takes over. Owain Arthur takes over. He
Yep.
does the deal. He does the
Yep.
deal with Elrond and
Yep.
Celebrimbor.
Yep.
And part of the deal is Celebrimbor feels bitter that he was rejected at the gate that first time. So Celebrimbor makes a contractual obligation, says, "Hey, if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna work together, I can never be rejected at the door again." And that's when Narvi comes in and works with
Oh, that's intriguing.
Celebrimbor and
Okay.
says, "All right, if we're gonna do this deal, building these forges,
Okay.
I gotta have access. I gotta
So,
have a door."
so you got it. You're trying to tell me you think that Celebrimbor's ego needs to be satisfied, and thus is the storytelling birthplace of the West Gate of Moria because of
100%, yeah,
I think
100%.
you're
And there was a
100% wrong
reason.
because that West Gate is supposed to symbolize friendship and unity between the two races that was celebrated between those two communities and those civilizations. It was never, ever at its greatest point at any other time in the history of Arda. It was then and there. And that West Gate is like a commemorative gate to the friendship
Then
between them.
why
Commemorative
did they in the pilot episodes, why did Celebrimbor just stood there like, "I guess I'm walking home alone"? Like the show did that on purpose. The show did that. Had Celebrimbor get rejected
Yeah,
at
he
the
got the
door
bums
on
rush. He got
purpose.
the bums rush.
Right, right.
Basically, you're
I
the
think there's
Avon
gonna
lady.
be
We're going to close the door on the Avon lady. We're going to give you the bums rush. And there he was. He was stuck outside like an Avon lady, not being let in. I thought that was almost symbolic for the way they were treating Celebrimbor. They're keeping him off stage. You know, we rumored this a long time ago, Justin.
Otaku says no Balrog awakened to Moria in the Second Age. That is just wrong. Look, we have
That's
to
right.
put this whole condensed timeline. Just ignore it, please. This show, this TV show is on its own path, and it's more
Yes.
connected to the films, whether it's official or not. It's more connected to the if you want to call it the universe of the films than it is the books. So just accept that and go along for the ride. So they're going to dig up a Balrog, and he's going to eat during the third. And I'm going to be sad because I really like that actor because he was in Westworld.
Yeah, he's awesome. Okay, come on. All right, I like your speculation, but you know what else we need to speculate about? And we don't know what's going to happen yet. Who's that Adar? Who's that other character that we've never seen yet?
What are you talking about? We haven't been introduced to. I can't talk about any characters that we haven't been introduced for. I don't know what this
Adar?
RSTLNE, like, you know, RSTLNE. I'll buy a vowel, please.
You're so ridiculous. I love it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that on future episodes. But
well,
we've only seen one orc, not the whole culture of orcs.
Let's point out how good of a fight scene that was with that one orc. Now, a lot of people have been talking about that. That was a really great scene.
The orcs are perfect, and I've heard
the orcs are great in the show.
I've heard from people on the set over the last year, and we've been reporting this on the show many times, but we've heard from many people on the set that the most realized culture on the whole show is the orc culture. And some of the best characterizations of anything in Middle Earth are the orcs. The orcs are really done right, and some of our favorite people in the whole world are some of those orcs. And we can't say anything more, otherwise.
Yes, that's right. We can't. We can't.
But I'm really looking forward to meeting some of those orcs.
So the Adar is Sindarin for father, of course.
Yeah, look, we
Hey,
can't.
thank you.
Stop talking about this character. I don't know nothing about him. I don't know
Hold
who
on.
he is.
I'm not talking about the character. I'm just glad to have this erudition from Ostadan. Ostadan is here with us in the live chat, and
Oh, there you go.
he's being so erudite and sharing that's Sindarin for father. Okay, yeah, that's right. It is.
Yeah,
So,
people in the chat room remember all of the talk after Comic Con of who different orcs are. So I'm happy
yeah.
that all of you are along for the ride, and I'm happy that we have so many new people coming in and so many new faces and names in the chat room today.
Yes, yes.
We're gonna be doing this every week. Now, Cliff, I wanted to just quickly share some reviews, like some tweets and reviews from the
Yes,
internet.
let's do that.
So
And let's
yeah,
let's compare and contrast some different ideas and different voices from our big wide community of Tolkien people.
so Neil Gaiman loves the show and says Elon Musk doesn't come to me for advice on how to buy Twitter, and I don't go to him for film, TV, or literature criticism. I believe that what Elon Musk said about the show is more related to his personal relationship or jealousy of Jeff
Rivalry.
Bezos, rivalry with Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the history of the world. I will remind people that over the last 2 and 3 years, uh, Jeff Bezos has been uh, deemed the richest man in the world because of Amazon, and then Elon Musk has been uh, announced as the richest man in the world on based on his stock price. So those two gentlemen are going back and forth. They're not going back and forth. The press and the media and the Twitter and stuff is going back and forth of like who's actually the richest man. So I don't believe that Elon Musk's opinion holds a lot of weight because there's a personal vendetta going on. Um, but let's go to some other comments. Cliff, I want to say Galadriel. I did not like the way she was portrayed in this. I'll admit that this is probably more because of the way I've always envisioned her to be. Was not what they showed. That is actually a quote from December 2001. That is about Kate Blanchett's Galadriel. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for this old review, Fellowship of the Ring. December
Mm.
2001. I just saw this tragedy of a show. Just got back from seeing this mangling of a true historic masterpiece. Anyways, after seeing the show several more times since we started talking about it, I have to say the things that bother me most consistently remain scenes that seem to alter the very essence of a character from Tolkien's description of them. The same thing with Galadriel freak out thing. Kate Blanchett is entirely capable of displaying some fine acting. No need to rely on VFX either. Those things stick out in my mind. Another review, very clever reply. It made me smile for the first time since seeing the movie last night. I only wish your comment was true, and that was the reason all the subtle grace and beauty of the words of Tolkien were cast aside.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I thought the biggest flaw in the show was taking away Galadriel's kindliness and understanding, therefore denoting all elves as being proud, pompous elitists who see humans and dwarves as inferior to them. Bah, that is the biggest flaw in the show, although it only slightly affects the course of the company. This is Cliff. This could have been written today about this show, about this Galadriel.
Yes, it could have been. Intriguing. It could have been written about this exact show today.
The
Intriguing. Very
biggest
intriguing.
flaw in the show was taking away Galadriel's kindliness and understanding.
Uh, what?
Did you have any thoughts on Galadriel? You know, kind
Yes,
of
I. Oh gosh, yes, I do. But what we're looking at is the the conversation that did not come out of any character who was an elf, and we're talking Celebrimbor, Gilgalad, Galadriel, Elrond. We had all these elves on stage, but none of them were talking about the thing that they most would want to do, and that is to slow down time. Ostadan and I were talking about this earlier. The rings are made to slow down time. The 9 rings for men, they stop you from dying. They turn you into a wraith. They slow down time. The 3 elven rings, were made with the purpose of preserving the elvendom on Earth. The elven kingdoms that they had in Middle Earth were going to be preserved from decay and preserved from the ravages of time by using these 3 rings. And we haven't yet heard that conversation happen amongst any of the elves about, and this is one of the most important and deeper fundamental thematic constructs that Professor Tolkien was most interested in, was the approach of timelessness and using the rings for stretching out and denying the actual natural process of time and temporality fulfilling itself the way that it needs to be fulfilled. So I don't know if what is missing from Galadriel is, I mean, look, she's being presented in a way, but they haven't presented her yet as desiring to create a dominion of her own or a kingdom of her own in Middle Earth. But they're planting the seeds of this character in such a way, and she is behaving with strong ambition, very strong ambition, and she's very driven, very, very driven woman. But what she's driven by, besides just a revenge kick for her brother Finrod, is not yet fully fleshed out. And I do wish that they would put more into Galadriel, at least put more into Celebrimbor and Galadriel, that they would desire to seek dominion in Middle Earth by a unique process, and that is slowing down time. That has to come up. It must come up, and I'm really glad that I was able to talk with Osterdan earlier about this today.
Let me big question here. Do you agree with the filmmaker's choice for her to take up her brother's cause?
Well, Tolkien wrote in other posthumously published things that she was not to leave Middle Earth while Sauron was still a factor. So that is something that Tolkien considered and actually wrote. Yes. So hello there. Tolkien Wonder. Hello, the Wonder of Tolkien is there in our chat. JD and Patrick says that she'll have to fall and learn. She'll have to fail and learn through her mistakes. She is in a long, long story arc. So we're still at the preliminary stages. You know what? I think a lot of this overall assessment of Galadriel should wait until the end of season 1. Really? Really? That's just me. What do you think, Justin? Don't you think we should wait until what becomes the bigger picture of the trajectory of everybody by the end of season 1? We should know a lot more about where they're really thinking of going, right?
If you would have asked me this 2 weeks ago before I've watched the episodes multiple times, the pilot episodes multiple times, I would have had a different opinion. I feel the feeling I have of right now of like we've gone through 2 hours and I still don't have a complete thought, a complete storyline, a complete anything. After 2 hours of my time, I want season 1 to wrap up everything with a nice little bow and leave open further adventures, set the stage for something else to come with new characters like Narvi or something like that. But I do feel that this season needs to wrap up something with the bow. And all the storylines just need to have some completion. Knowing that this is 5 seasons and 50 episodes and they know what the last shot's going to be, that's great. But I every episode needs to have some sort of fulfillment. I don't know what that is.
Okay, that's what you're identifying. It looks like something has not been snapped into place yet.
Right, and we know the overarching story and what needs to
Hmm.
what's going to happen with Sauron and Numenor and making rings and destroying like we know the big beats, but I just need I want to come away every week with a sense of fulfillment and like, oh, that felt nice. Not exactly like Boba Fett or Mandalorian, where like every week he goes on an adventure and defeats the bad guy and rescues the baby and returns the eggs to the thing and saves the widow. It like it doesn't have to be that formulaic, but I do every episode from here on out. I
Hmm.
do want a sense of completion or fulfillment in the smallest capacity, and I do want the season overall to have just a sense of like, all right, all those characters went through a journey.
Hmm.
And
Oh, speaking of, there is no traveling. That was something else that Ostadan said. You notice that there's nobody traveling in this series at all. Nobody travels. All of a sudden,
they're
bam,
getting ready to travel.
Elrond is there in Eregion. We didn't see him traveling any distance. It's like, bam, he was teleported there, and there he is. Isn't that crazy? Now, that's interesting that we're so accustomed to that. We are really, really accustomed to Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings being a road movie, a big road movie, and it's all about the journey. But in this TV series, it does feel significantly different that we're cutting back and forth to different places and no one's traveling at all, except noticeably at the very, very end of episode 2, all of the villagers at Tir Harad now have to pack up and evacuate and leave their village of Tir Harad. Yes, hello. Here's Myth. This is Mithrandir. Hello, everybody. Um, you know what? I'm interested in what's going to happen, but they really do need to move the story along. I'm going to acknowledge what one of our live chat friends just said. I think it's James. We're already at 25%. This is it. 2 episodes is the 25% mark
Hold
of
on.
season.
2, 4, 6,
Yep,
8.
1/4.
That's what
It
I'm
is
saying, and there's been no
one.
completion.
Yeah,
And the
it's one
first
quarter of the
20
way into the story already. 1/4 of
the
the way.
the first 25% of the in the Fellowship of the Ring, by the time we leave the Shire, we are ready to leave the Shire.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well,
And
it's
the Harfoots aren't ready to leave their encampment. Galadriel's not ready to go to Valinor. Um, it's like
mm,
uh, I don't know. I get, yeah, there is no traveling,
not yet,
and
but I'm looking forward to that too. I'm enthusiastic. I have a lot of strong positive feelings that this series is going to succeed and carry forward, and it's going to be a big surprise, hopefully. But in order to get there, we're just going to have to chew on it. We're going to have to, pound on the keyboard and say, well, look, we know that Galadriel never really went to Numenor. At least it wasn't written about that way. Blah, 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 blah. And Meteor Man? Well, okay, if it is Gandalf, we know that Gandalf never came in the Second Age. But what if it's Olorin? What if it's really Olorin and they're never ever going to call him Gandalf at all?
I
So we're just going to
if
have to
that's
get through it.
Gandalf or Olorin, I'm throwing away my Roku. Like
I would
there's
actually,
so many other characters to
I
play with.
agree. I agree. I agree
Don't
with
do it.
you. Yeah,
And
don't do it. Don't do it.
Amazon, you have all the
But
money in the world, and we're telling you, if you filmed it like that, I'm telling you, get someone on a green screen and redub whatever lines need to do. Just change his name, just anything except Olorin or
it
Gandalf. Hey,
it can't.
Cliff,
It
if
shouldn't be. It shouldn't be
wow,
Gandalf.
I
Really.
wanted to ask you, Cliff, as long as I got you here. While Galadriel was swimming across the sea,
Yeah.
when she looked down in
Yeah.
the water, was she looking at Balerion?
No. She was at a section of the waters where she was nowhere near Balerion. Nowhere near that.
Okay.
Nope.
We've got some text message again, 53064 Frodo. Cliff, we got a text from Ent Maiden. You remember Anne, Ent
Yes.
Maiden?
Yes, of course. Yes.
She says, I recently reread the appendices so I could separate that content from what I know from the Silmarillion. I
Mhm.
think that's helpful for watching Rings of Power. The allowable content is fresher in my memory.
Yep,
And you know what?
that's
Amazon
great.
told us as such. Cliff, do you remember when we got those surprise books in the mail last Christmas and they put a bookmark at the appendices? Literally,
You mean this one? You mean
Amazon
this
told
one?
us, and we told you, folks, read the appendices and stop there. Just read the appendices, folks. That's all you need to do.
Yep,
Um,
that's exactly what they said. They said start here, and here it is, and here it is. Here's the bookmark.
there you go.
The bookmark is right in Appendix A, right where it was the whole time when they sent it to me. Yeah, it's fascinating. Well,
We got another text message that says, "Hear me out. Celebrimbor is aware of Mithril, wants it for the Noldor to fight against future evil and make his civilization last. Doesn't
that's
want the dwarves to have complete control over Mithril,
that's intriguing. That could be very intriguing.
and in fear is in fear of not being able to defend the elves, not being able to defend themselves if the dwarves control all the Mithril."
I like this, Maple. Maple Creature says, have we discussed the fact that elves can walk on top of snow and can still swim in water? But they still swim, but they still swim in water.
Hey,
Wouldn't they be
thanks
so? That's a really good one. Wouldn't they be less dense? I wonder
Yeah.
now. We need to do a science experiment on the density
No,
of
just
an elf. I like that idea.
thank you for the text
That's
messages, and
intriguing.
I'm seeing emails and text messages and people in the chat room saying the OneRing.net is down. We expected this because it's a busy day, and we appreciate all the love you're giving to Cliff's
Wow.
review,
Thank
my
you.
review, and do check out our history of Rings of Power. Cliff, we can't finish a show without like addressing the elephant in the Twitter. And
Oh gosh, what's that?
it's but it's something that you and I have been dealing with on the front lines for 2 years, and
Do we have to?
we don't have to, but I just because we've already said everything.
We
Um,
have. We have told everybody that there will be no tolerance for hate speech or bullcrap or even a thinly disguised academic argument about people of color being cast in this TV series. We've already
right.
cleared the table. We have
And
cleared the table.
And I can tell you, after having talked to the actors and the showrunners and the writers and the producers, especially the actors that have received the brunt of this hate and death threats and everything like that about ruining Tolkien, it's infinitely worse than even what Ian McKellen was unfairly dealing with 20 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, Ian McKellen had an outlet for his response 20 years ago because he had his own website, McKellen.com. And all
Mm-hmm.
of his old blog posts are still up. You could search for a gay Gandalf on McKellen.com and still see his response to that. And, you know, wisely or unwisely, you know, Amazon asked the actors to just do not respond to it. But I do appreciate that all the actors, as soon as they were given their Instagram accounts back, started saying the right things. But I just want to remind everybody. Let me bring this up on screen. We've been on the front lines of this, and I don't want to be on it anymore. But we said this in
Mm-hmm.
February. First off, Tolkien was against purity and bigotry. First off, he wanted other minds and hands. We already talked about that at the top of the show. Secondly, Tolkien was born in apartheid South Africa and was acutely aware of racial inequities. He says, I have the hatred of apartheid in my bones. And most of all, I detest the segregation or separation of language and literature. I do not care which of them you think white. So he was straight up talking about racism right there.
Mm.
Trolls have been complaining about the racism. Tolkien says we have no right, whatever they have done, to label any person as subhuman. That means equal seat at the performance table. Period. Period.
Yes.
Tolkien carried feminist literature in his pockets, and we have the video to prove it.
Stories, practically always a human story, is practically always about
Let me
one
play
thing,
this.
aren't they? Death. inevitability of death. I don't know would you agree with that, but anyway, that is what there was a quotation from Simon Beauvoir that I read in the paper the other day, which seems to me put it in a nutshell. I think I'll read it. This is apropos of the untimely death of a musical composer whom I've always
I don't know what happened there.
extremely fond.
What happened?
But so anyway, Tolkien carried around poetry from Simone de Beauvoir. I can't even say it, in his pocket. You saw him pull it out of his wallet, and he says the whole thing about Lord of the Rings is death. So like, and then go back to when someone says, "Oh, Tolkien wrote a Nordic myth or a English myth." He responded to that in 1967. Fans were mailing him letters saying, "I thought you wrote a Nordic myth," and he says, "Not Nordic, please. A word I personally dislike. It is associated with racialist theories." So everyone complaining that this show is subterfuge to Tolkien writing in England for northern northern countries. He himself in 1967 says he does not like that word, and he does not agree with racialist theories. And that's how people are they're weaponizing this idea of like a mythology for England. People on Twitter are weaponizing that and using it as a bludgeon to say all of these changes are, first off, they're not changes, they're true to Tolkien as we just described, and Tolkien himself did not approve of any language that would associate with racialist theories. So I just want
very true.
We said that a year ago, we said that 2 years ago, we say that at our panels, and we'll just keep we're not going to keep repeating it because it's there in print, and if you want to go find it, it's there. But we're not going to be a part of this discourse anymore. We said it, and we're glad that the actors have a voice now, and they will speak for themselves.
Yes, indeed.
And they are. And we support them, and we love them.
And we still welcome everybody who's going to be willing to have an open mind and an open hand to this conversation as we continue to grow and evolve our community and keep all of our voices, pretty much in the same place. These adaptations of Tolkien, whether they work or they don't work, always reflect on us talking about the books, and they bring us back to what we love about Tolkien and his works. And that is a bit of bad paraphrasing from Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, but it is something he said, and I would reiterate it again. Whatever happens here is our place to share with each other how much we love and have always loved the powerful storytelling and the uplifting spirit of J.R.R. Tolkien. And it's still going to be there for us to celebrate, regardless of, the show being effective in its efforts to adapt.
And the other reason I want to bring this up is that now that this show is launched and 25 million people have already watched it, a lot of people are coming out like, man, I've heard some stuff about this show. Like, is it all true? And this is one of the reasons like Torn exists, to tell you what's true and what's not true. And I know that it's a conversation at work and around the kitchen table. Your uncle who might watch a certain news program and our news channel and nothing else, and maybe get all his news from YouTube and nowhere else, he might have formed an opinion based on the media he consumed. And we want to give you guys the ammunition and the power to say, actually, what you heard is not true. Tolkien actually meant this and said this. And if you go to our YouTube account, the One Ring Net, we've uploaded our July Comic-Con panel where we go in deep about all of these topics. And I think Matt, Nerd of the Rings, was on that panel, who eloquently said, look, the people on this panel, we may not agree politically or any way else, but when it comes to Tolkien, we're all here because we love Tolkien. And the message of the panel is, like Cliff just said, Tolkien's message is ultimately about love.
Yes. Well, that's what Anna Marie said. Anna Maria said that.
Yeah, but you just reinforced it.
And
So
it's true. It's
we
true.
we know that you guys everywhere are getting bombarded with family members like, hey, should I watch the show? Or I just watched the show and I watched this YouTube video and he gives all 2 hours of valid criticisms and like it's so W word and all that stuff, and it's like we just want to, the One Ring just wants to be here as a resource to tell you, look, it's not Tolkien didn't mean what people are saying he meant, and it's right there in all his letters. Hey, before we go,
Thank you for that spirited defense, Justin.
I've been
Thank
wearing
you
this
for that.
Rings of Power.
Yeah, where'd you get that windbreaker?
I brought something back.
Yeah.
I brought something back.
Oh,
And
is that what I think it is? Is it a little mini poster?
it is what you think it is.
It's a beautiful little mini poster. How nice
and
is
since
that?
since it's the first show of Torn Tuesday, since the premiere of Rings of Power,
yes.
I'm gonna mail this to someone. So Cliff, so you've got the phone number on the screen right there. It's a Google Voice number, so if you have Google Voice, I think you can text it from your Google Voice if you're in an international thing. So Cliff, how should we give this away? Is there a trivia question? Is there a
It's a trivia question. How should we give this away?
Should we just do a random slot, like everyone text the hotline and then we'll just choose a random text?
How about I roll this D20? I could roll a D20, a nice platinum shiny.
All right, so you know what?
I'll roll a D20. Whoever gets a 20 gets it.
No, not 20. Look, how about this? How about this?
I don't know.
How about this? Cliff, you figure out a trivia question.
Okay.
And then everyone text the answer that you think the answer is to the hotline at the bottom of the screen. And then Cliff will roll a D20. And that will decide, first off, of all the people that got it right, which number wins. So you have to know a little trivia, and there's a little bit of randomness in this.
Okay, Brian says real gamers roll with the D100. That's true, probably.
I don't have D100.
But you want me to do a trivia question right now?
Yeah. What should we
off the top of my head?
While I open this,
if we get more than 20 people responding, then rolling a D20 won't help.
Well, then I'll just have to give away something else. Like,
thank you, Matt.
You know what?
Okay.
We have a bunch of OneRing.net gold pins.
Okay, we do have some of those beautiful pins. So let me think about this for a second.
I got two pins and this. What is this, folks? Original artwork that we gave away at our party at Comic-Con. This is a beautiful, you can see it's a matte finish, heavy paper, limited edition art print from Rings of Power. So that's what you're winning here. So Cliff is thinking of a trivia question to give away. Ooh, that's a nice. Now that the light isn't on it. Yeah, that's
okay.
That's
got it.
All right. So remember, you're gonna text your answer to the hotline, and then Cliff is gonna roll for initiative.
Yep, I'm gonna roll for initiative. Okay, you guys ready? I guess.
Did that say 405? No, it said 405 out of 1,000. Limited edition print of 1,000, and this is number 400.
How beautiful. Okay. This is.
And if you want me to sign it, even though I have no business to, Cliff and I will sign this. So we'll ask the winner. I will respond on text if you win. I will respond to you and text you back, say you've been randomly chosen and you got the right answer. And then then we'll ask you if you want us to sign this or not, or if you want to keep it clean.
Okay. There was a kingdom in the south called Gondor. There was a kingdom in the north called Arnor. Give me the name of the last king of Arnor. There you go. That's the question. Who was
What
the
age?
Huh?
What
Doesn't matter.
age?
Doesn't matter. Who was the
The
last?
last king of
Well,
Arnor.
obviously, Arnor was founded in the Third Age. So yeah.
Well, not obviously. If by season 5.
So how are you looking at people in the multi-chat? Because people are coming up with answers now. The last king of Arnor.
You have to text the answer to the hotline at the bottom of the
Right.
screen. 530
53
64 Frodo.
53064 Frodo. Don't just text it in the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
These people
You're
are coming
giving away
up.
the answer. Oh, wow. Get it? Yeah, Chiv Knight. I just got your text. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting answers. We're
Let
getting
me know.
answers.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's get the
yeah.
first 20. All right. Let me know when you get 20 and I'll roll a d20 right now. Out of the first 20 answers.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Out of the first
7,
20
8,
answers, we're gonna roll.
9. Babe Cruiser. I see you, Babe Cruiser.
Let me know when you're at 20.
By the way, big shout out to Amazon Prime Video. They're just Prime Video. I got to stop saying Amazon. But Cliff,
Prime Video. Yes, that's right. Okay, ready?
Speaking of Prime Video, hold
Hey,
on.
do we roll yet? Do we roll
No,
yet?
not yet. At 15, 16. I want to say, Cliff, during the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies, did we ever get tickets to the premiere of those movies?
Nope.
I want to shout out Amazon Prime and Prime Studios and Prime Video. They, as secretive as they've been with the cast and the making of and no leaks and the stressful conversations every time Cliff and I leak something, I want to shout out Prime Video because they had no business supporting fans, and all they've done is engage fans. They invited hundreds of fans to the London premiere and the New York premiere and the Mexico premiere and the LA premiere, and then they had global screenings in 8 countries with thousands of theaters at Cinemark and Cineworld.
They did.
Like I can't believe Amazon gave away free screenings to the pilot.
Isn't that amazing?
They didn't need to do that at all, and that just goes to show that how much trust they've put into fans for not leaking anything from those first few episodes, for the first few screenings.
Indeed.
And how much trust they have in fans to like the show. As critical as we can be, and you've seen some critical YouTube videos, as critical as we can be, everybody, whether you're a critic or a hate tuber or a passionate fan of Lord of the Rings, and you just started a Twitter account and now you have a podcast and all you want to do is live in Middle Earth, Amazon invited everybody, no holds barred. They didn't. There weren't any block lists. Like, it was just like, everybody come check out the episodes across the world. They didn't need to do that. I don't think any other studio has done that for the fans in this capacity. I think Star Wars had a screening of Kenobi at Celebration, but it wasn't a global theatrical screening. So I just want to say, it's very special. And I hope the fans are realizing this. It's very special that Amazon has put their trust in us, the fans, to like the show. And,
Indeed.
I don't know. I feel I get kind of choked up on thinking about it, like on the plane back from London, how much, I don't know, how lucky we are that this fandom is so special and Amazon has recognized it, and they've been so secretive and protective of this, and they've just been so nice to us.
It was a surprise to have any of those screenings happen after they'd been so secretive for so long. That was a big surprise. Now, we must have 20. Count to 20.
15, 16, 17.
Use timestamps.
17. I have 17.
You only have 17?
I need
answers?
3 more answers, guys. Come on.
Who was the last king? The last
Julia.
king of Arnor.
Yeah. Julia was the last text. Again, the last king of Arnor. Text your answer. There we go. 18.
Who was the last king of Arnor?
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You can't enter twice. I see you on the phone numbers. I see your phone number. Come on. I see you.
That's right.
Aravandi. I'd love to see your name.
Maybe I should roll a d10.
Do you have a D18?
No, it has to be an even 20.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
This is
7,
hilarious.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
Hilarious.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, I overcounted the duplicates. 17, 18. One more. No, two more. I got to do my math. 19 rings for 19 for the 19 rings, and then one ring to rule them out. That's why we chose a D20. Do you think the D20 has to do with the rings?
No, it's a dodecahedron. That's all.
We got to ask who came up with the D20? One more.
One more. I'm going to go ahead and roll, and we'll see if we get lucky.
Roll.
Hopefully,
wait. Roll. First roll.
Okay.
Let's ask the chat room. First roll is for this, or first roll? No, only one roll. We got only 20 answers. All right, 20 answers. Let's go. We're only winning this.
Here we go. Ready? I just rolled, and you're not going to believe it, but here it is. A 3. I rolled a 3.
3.
I rolled a 3.
3.
The person of the third text is the winner. And the answer is Arvedui, if that's how you pronounce it.
One, 2, 3.
Number 3, Arvedui. Number 3.
Actually, hi, what's your name? I'm texting right now. They didn't put their name in the text.
Yeah, okay, you're the winner.
Let's see who wins.
You're the winner. Number 3, you're the winner.
Hi, what's your name? I just texted you.
You better tell us so we can congratulate you on the show.
I want the chat to know.
That's hilarious.
All
right.
So this Rings of Power poster, courtesy of the OneRing.net from
a lovely gift. A lovely gift.
Yeah. At Mark. Congratulations, Mark. I'm going to send this to you. Mark. Text me your address. And do you want us to sign it? You can text me that answer too. I'm happy to not.
Do you want to roll for the pins too? Want to roll for the pins? Can we give away a pin?
Do people want us to roll for the pins?
Yeah, they want us to
Julia said yes, roll for pins. All right, roll for pins.
I'm using a different D20 this time. See?
Different D20.
A very different D20. Ready? Okay. Now we roll this one. Oh, it was actually crooked. It landed crooked. Let me try that again. It was totally canted. Sorry. Yeah, the answer was Arvedui. Thank you, everybody. 1. Jeez, I rolled a 1. I rolled a 1. That means
you rolled a 1.
I rolled a natural 1. That was my worst roll ever. My worst roll ever. Okay, I rolled a 1. Who's the first person?
The first person? The Chiv Knight.
Chiv Knight wins of the OneRing.net enamel pin. A beautiful enamel pin.
So, address, please, for the pin.
Okay.
You know what? And I did say we were going to give away 2 of these, so I have a second one.
What? Then I'm going to do another roll. This time,
another roll, another dice.
This is yet another D20. This one is made of opal. Pure opal. Beautiful opal. Ready?
Hang on.
What? Is the house on fire? What's going on? I mean, cat's begging for dinner.
I'm looking
over here.
For my D20.
You're looking for your D20? No, I've got the D20. I'm rolling it.
Okay.
Thank you. It is. Thank you. This is an opal, beautiful opal, and it's really lovely. Ready? Okay, here we go. This is for the second giveaway of a pin for the Torn pin, and I rolled 18.
18.
Much bigger number. I rolled an 18. That's much better. So I rolled a 3 for the art print, and then I rolled a 1 and an 18. No, Hassan, you can never, ever have too many dice. Trust me. You can never have too many dice. Here's all my D20s right here.
And looks like Troy H.
You can never have too many dice.
Boom. I just texted you Troy H. Thank you for that. Oh, wait. I should ask Cliff Cliff,
Well, that's what
question.
I meant of Gondor. Yes, the last king of Arthedain. That's what I
Cliff,
meant of Gondor. Yeah, I got it. I got it. I
you
meant
said
that.
that the last king of Arnor,
Yes, I
right?
did.
So, is the correct answer Arvudui? What'd you say? How do you say his name?
Yeah, Arvedui was the last
But
king.
is his name King Arvadui?
Yes.
Did he officially hold the title King Arvadui, or was he
Okay.
a steward? I got to disqualify this thing if he was never actually called King Arvadui, and if he was just a steward of
Well,
Arnor.
Arthedain was a section of Arnor, right? Arnor was a section of Arthedain.
I'm gonna give it to you anyway, Troy. Come on,
That's
I like it.
hilarious. Yes,
Anyway,
just
folks.
Arthedain is after Arnor. Okay, well, of Gondor, I appreciate the lore check. That was a big old lore check.
Yeah,
Okay.
David. Arvadui was king, but was he called King Arvadui in any text?
Yes, yes. The answer is yes.
Or was he called steward or something
No,
else?
he was
I want to
called
know
king.
that king.
He was called king. Would you stop it?
Okay. All right.
He was called king. He was definitely called king.
All right. Well, folks, I'm so happy that we can share in some of these gifts from Amazon, from Prime Video. We're so excited that the uh, show has received just overwhelming positivity, and our Discord, which you should sign up for and just join, because the conversation is fast and it's hot and it's wonderful, and people are debating. And on Reddit, Varking is also managing the subreddit LOTR on Prime, and the conversation has been relatively clean for Reddit and positive, and people are genuinely debating the choices that have been made by the writers and the showrunners. But the thing that no one, no legit criticism has been leveled at was the caliber of performance. The acting in this show, every actor brought it and are continuing to bring it. I am fully on board Charles Edwards as, right, that's his name, as
Yes.
Celebrimbor. Short hair and all, I love him. I love Brimby. He's my favorite character. I love Ismael Cruz Cordova as Arondir. Like he's better than Legolas. So far, better than Legolas. I'm fully on board. So the child actors, fantastic. I'm like the performances of the the elvish kin getting into a fight on the grass, all the way to the youthful Harfoots. The child
Yes.
actors are wonderful performances. And I can tell you, I was not once taken out of this show by a lackluster performance that felt like an actor acting.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Yes.
These people
Yes.
live in Middle Earth, period.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
all we wanted.
It actually did feel like a very well inhabited world. It really did.
It really did. Even even the background characters, like Bronwyn arguing with the butcher, and the people drunk in the pub,
Mm-hmm. In the
when
public
Arondir,
house. Yeah.
like all of those actors, like they just feel good. And
Yeah.
I acknowledge the genuine criticism for the show. I acknowledge that some people just didn't like Two Towers at all, and
Yeah.
I loved it. And I wouldn't change anything about Two Towers, and many people would change many things about Two Towers. I feel this show is on track to create the same dialogue, but I think we can all agree in the caliber of the quality of the show. It does, every dollar's on screen. It does not look like cheap television at
Not at
all.
all. It looks like it really does. And I'm going to say this probably a few more times. It looks like we're going somewhere very interesting with this. It looks like we're really, really going somewhere. And I'm intrigued to see the end of it, where we get to. I really am. I'm
I am
very
too.
I'm very into it to see where we end up. So let's see what happens. So thank you, and my deepest regards to Of Gondor, who is a very meticulous lore master, and we'll set aside an enamel pin just for him because he's awesome, and it's very, very nice to know the hardcore nerds are with us. They're with us, hardcore nerds. Welcome aboard. And it's really lovely having everybody join us for this spirited conversation as we finally get to see in public, everybody in wide release, we finally get to see the Rings of Power all together. And thank you for joining us for this merry gathering. And I think it is a very good time to have you all with us. So as we get ready for next week, take care of yourselves and be gentle with one another. And we'll see you on social media. You can follow us at the One Ring Net on all those platforms. Join us there. You can see me online at QuickBeam2000 on Instagram and Twitter. And a lot of other fun things are coming our way at the end of this month, coming soon, at the end of September. We have a big, huge gathering in Los Angeles. It is the Baggins Birthday Bash, the public picnic.
That's right.
Everybody's going to get together.
Saturday the 22nd.
Saturday
in Griffith Park.
It's not far away. It's very close by. It's going to be really great. So thanks, everybody.
5 episodes in, I think.
Yep. We'll be fun. And we'll have so much to talk about at the picnic together. So you guys take care of each other and check out all the great content providers that we know and love around our community. And hey, Justin, thank you for dialing in for the show today. And thank you for being with us for this giveaway. Everybody, you stuck through. It was a 2-hour broadcast. And here we are giving away free stuff at the end. It's really lovely. I wish you all a very, very good week. Have a great week and be good to one another. Until next time, I like to say good night and good luck. Or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. See you next time on theonering.net.
Bye now.
Bye.